Those that have been lucky enough, or perhaps unlucky enough, to witness the incredible strangeness to be found on this earth, have spoken since time immemorial, of a type of life form that science and most of the world cannot, accept as real. I refer to this type of life form as a non-organic being, and I, like certain others, call these creatures this because fundamentally, they are beings that are alive, but that nevertheless do not possess a physical body. That is, they are living entities, sometimes individual and quite intelligent individualities, that do not need any physical body to contain their life essence and separateness. The complicated thing about these life forms is that some of them can be larger, more powerful, and at times even far more intelligent other life, that has the ability to trick the mind, trick human perception, into thinking or perceiving that they are what they are not. I, for example, have often said that many of the creatures and phenomenon that we attribute to one thing, most often what we believe to be a completely physical thing, is in fact the result of these non-organic beings. Now, this is not to say, nor am I trying to say definitively, that such beings as Bigfoot, ghosts, poltergeists, certain types of aliens, and a variety of other cryptids, are not physically real and do not exist as separate entities, biological or otherwise. But what I am trying to say is that these non-organic beings that I am referring to here can trick the mind, can trick human perception, into believing that it is seeing something that it is not. And a non-organic life form, for example, due to the fact that it is non-organic, can trick a person into believing that they have come face to face with a creature like a Bigfoot, or a creature usually referred to as a grey alien. In such a situation, a person might believe that they are face to face with a biological being, a true flesh and blood entity that then acts in a very similar way to what someone might expect such an entity to act like, but always with the odd intent of somehow causing the most emotional upheaval or trauma in the human witness. As I have discussed in my books and website articles, such terrifying behavior is usually done to have the witness experience huge amounts of emotional trauma that these non-organic entities then consume as food. I feel that the presence of these non-organic beings that do favor certain locations due to their electromagnetic properties, but that can generally be found all over this planet, do pose a great wrinkle to those that seek strange cryptids and alien life. As I have said, I am not trying to say that these other types of biological beings do not exist, but it is the case that a non-organic life form can hide its real intention, which is to feed off of human emotional upheaval, from all of us, and use subterfuge to feed on an unsuspecting person in a secluded area, a power spot, or a haunted area, by making such a person perceive things that are not truly there. But this then brings up many questions. This idea that non-organic life, of a sometimes incredibly complex nature, exists all around us. The biggest question perhaps is, how is it that we can on odd and random occasions see these most oftentimes invisible entities? Why are they seen at times? What is the accidental factor? This accidental factor is something, by the way, that I actually have discussed in another video, which I will link in the video description below if you are interested. But getting back to the point of this video, is there a better method? Is it possible to not just rely on random nature of accidental chance sightings? Well, the answer is yes. And the ability to develop the conscious and deliberate possibility of seeing non-organic life is possible through work at technique and practice, which can then allow us to study them and protect ourselves, as these non-organic life forms can and do represent dangerous forces that need careful scrutiny. To that end, we can learn to see beyond our usual limits, and doing so can allow us to perceive what we might think is the unperceivable, which can then open up an incredible new world, an admittedly scary world, one that might just have the ability to alter our lives forever. So the question then becomes, how can we learn to see these non-organic life forms? In order to tell you how inner alchemists learn to master such a skill, I will have to reference techniques that I discuss in my books, and I will not be able to discuss the skills in great detail in this video, as they are complex and do require background information and details. So if you are new to these reference techniques, I do recommend that you do some research and see if you can discover the how-to of these techniques. If you like, you can also check out the books that I will mention at the end of this video, as I do teach them in detail, being that they are part of the Inner Alchemy tradition. In order to begin, it is a very good idea to first master the ability to see auras. There are many techniques that are employed to be able to master this skill, and I do discuss a pretty easy, at least from my perspective, methodology to do this in my books. My belief is that seeing auras is not a difficult thing. Most often I find that the most difficult thing is the ability to believe, to truly believe that what you're seeing is something that is not supposed to be real, but that now you can see that it is. And then keep exercising that skill until you are able to master this technique, which can take a bit of time, and which is marked by the final acceptance that auras are indeed real, and that seeing them is a valid skill to have. Another technique required to see non-organic life, one that is again in my opinion indispensable, is the ability to use what I refer to as the inner feeling sense. I find that of all of the descriptive terms that I have come across, this is the most accurate in describing what this skill is all about. This is so because the inner feeling sense involves the ability to project an aspect of yourself beyond the body being, and make contact with the existing essence around you. Through this ability to project an aspect of yourself, you are able to perceive with a kind of inner sense that can see, that can perceive, that can kind of see-perceive, in a way that is in many respects far more accurate and far more powerful than anything that the physical senses could ever possibly provide. The final step in the development of this skill, in the ability to be able to see non-organic life clearly, and in most situations, is the ability to acquire the personal energy that such new perceptive modes require. That means that the ability to be able to see auras, and to be able to use the inner feeling sense, and therefore the ability to see non-organic life, is directly related to the kind of energy that a person is able to acquire and maintain. But it is my belief that the average person, with little skill aside from perhaps the ability to see auras clearly, will be able to see displacements and energetic patterns that will allow them to begin to perceive non-organic life. Using the same kind of perceptive qualities that you use when you look for aural patterns around people, you can see displacements and movements of energy that can seem to have a sentient disposition, meaning that they are moving as if alive, meaning that this is free-floating energy with intent. You may also see pulsating frequencies of energy, or sometimes even a vacuous tendency, like a void of energy where there should be something, that can mean that a non-organic life form is there or that a non-organic life form is living, that is existing, in the vicinity, and has consumed the natural energy in the area. Someone who is very good at seeing auras might be able to use such a technique alone to be able to perceive this non-organic life clearly. It is most likely the case, though, that in order to truly be able to perceive this non-organic life, and to be able to discern its intention, and indeed even begin a kind of communication with it, the inner feeling sense is most crucial. Using the inner feeling sense, you can project an aspect of yourself into those displacements that you have been able to perceive, and in doing so you'll get a deep feeling, an empathic kind of relation if you will, for those displacements. The inner feeling sense will also allow you to have better perceptions, that is to outline and perceive form more clearly, which can then help to augment the empathic tuning in between you and that organic life. Using this technique, you will also be able to perceive intention, create relative communication, and discern a near infinite number of things depending on your skill level. Using such techniques then, combined with the ability to work with energy in order to grow in power, a person can begin to perceive the incredibly varied non-organic life that is all around them at every single moment of every day. Such a variety of life can be very small at times, and at other times it can be incredibly huge and complex. Many people are not ready for such things, such revelations, and that may be the reason why certain skills must be learnt and mastered before such revelations are possible. But if you are interested in such mind-blowing revelations yourself, then just mastering the ability to see auras will incredibly expand your chances of seeing and perceiving, and knowing, the non-organic reality all around you. And let me repeat, the vast majority of the human world is not ready for such revelations. Indeed, many of them, under the weight of such revelations, would most likely lose their minds. But if you think you are ready, and please do proceed at your own risk, then you now have a basic understanding of how this is possible. If you would like to know more about how to develop the ability to see auras, to work with energy, and how to develop the inner feeling sense, in order to see the supposedly impossible, then I recommend my books. The Magnum Opus, a step-by-step course, or the Occult Experience. I will leave a link to both of these books in the video description below.